Dear students, I welcome you on behalf of Thakur Vidya Mandir High School and Junior College for the remote teaching learning process, where our motto is let learning be a joy and teaching a pleasure.
Let us move towards part 3 of chapter number 9, that is depository system, wherein today we are going to understand about the constituents of depository system. In our previous video, we already learned the meaning of depository system, the drawbacks of the physical mode of handling the certificates. We also understood the importance as well as the advantages of depository system to the investors as well as to the companies. Now today, let us move ahead to question number 6, wherein we will understand the constituents of depository system. The term constituent means part of depository system. That is, the depository comprises of various parts. Under the depository system, all the operations or functions are performed by depository, but with the help of its constituents, which includes the following. The first being the depository, that is we have already discussed in our country we have two depository, that is NSDL and CDSL. The second constituent is the depository participant, that is the DP. The third constituent represents the beneficial owner, that is BO. And the fourth constituent represents the issuer company. So accordingly, there are four constituents of the depository system, that is the depository participant, the beneficial owner, and the issuer company. Let us now move towards the constituents of depository system in detail. The first and the foremost constituent of depository system is the depository. Depository is an organization or a system which works like central bank of a nation. Just like a central bank is responsible for control over money and credit in a country, in a similar way, depository is responsible for control of securities which are issued by company, and that too in a completely electronic form. Further, the depository provides various services which are related to different transactions like transfer of securities, dematerialization, that is, conversion of physical certificates into electronic form, direct transfer to demat, and bank account of customer, etc. So, a variety of services are provided to the by the depository to its investors. Nextly, as depository holds security of investors in electronic form, it becomes their responsibility to safely handle them and thereby act as a custodian of such securities. However, the depository does not have a direct access to the investors. They deal with the investors through the depository participant, that is DP. And we have already discussed that the role of the DP can be played by banks, by financial institutions, by stockbrokers, etc. Further, the depository acts as a link between the company and the investors, as it helps the investors to buy or sell securities of company such as shares, debentures, bonds, etc. in a paperless manner. Lastly, as discussed earlier, there are two depositories in India, that is NSDL, the full form being National Securities Depository Limited, and CDSL, the full form being Central Depository Services Limited. Thus, the depository is the most important organization in the entire depository system, as the securities of each and every investor in the country are completely handled by the depository in a very safe manner. The second important constituent of the depository system is the depository participant, that is the DP. Now, we have already discussed that there are only two depositories in the country, that is NSDL and CDSL, which means that all the securities which are issued in the country are registered and held by the depository. Accordingly, it is not possible for NSDL or CDSL to contact or communicate with each and every investor in the country. And that is why there is a requirement of an intermediary, a link person, or you can say an agent. So depository participant acts as an agent of the depository, as it deals with the investors on behalf of depository. So depository does not communicate with the investors, it is DP who communicates with the investors on the behalf of the depository. Thus, the DP acts as an intermediary or a link between the depository and investor. Further, registration of each and every DP is compulsory under the SEBI Act, and thus it also enjoys the rights and have obligations, that is duty to be performed as given under SEBI Depository and Participant Regulations of 1996. Thus, any bank or any financial institution which plays the role of DP, it is necessary for itself to register under the SEBI regulations of 1996. Next, the DP directly deals with customers, that is the investors, and it does so by sending them statement of accounts on a periodical basis, which means that the investors get a complete detailed information about their security holdings through the copy of the statements which is sent by the depository participant. Further, just like commercial banks or any other banks is a bank for money and credit, in a similar way, DP functions as a bank for securities, wherein the securities of the investors are safely handled. And it is for this reason that the DP is also called as a securities bank. Next, DP also facilitates, that is, provides assistance in dematerialization of securities. The term dematerialization over here means conversion of physical certificates into electronic form. Thus, DP helps the investor to convert their physical certificates into electronic form. So whenever any investor requests the company to requests the DP to convert its physical certificates into electronic form, it is said to be dematerialization of securities. And over here, DP plays an important role because it converts the securities which are held in physical form into electronic form. Further, whenever the company makes a rights issue or issues bonus shares, then in such a case, the DP directly credits such securities in the investor's account. Similarly, even when the company declares dividend or makes payment of interest on securities, even in that case also, the DP handles instant transfers of such payouts to the investor's account. Thus, it can be said that in this way the depository participant settles all the transactions related to the securities electronically. Now, let us understand as to who all can act or work as depository participant. It includes the following. Firstly, financial institutions like SIDBI, or you can say IDBI, ICICI. These are all the financial institutions and they can play the role of DP. Further, banks, there is State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, Dena Bank, etc. Even these banks can play the role of depository participant. Further, approved foreign banks. There are foreign banks, multinational banks in our country. Even after getting permission from the government, even these foreign banks can play the role of DP. Further, there are stockbrokers who definitely play the role of DP. Further, there are even non-banking financial companies who can act as DP on behalf of the depository. Further, there is registrar to an issue or share transfer agents. Even the share transfer agents or the company's registrar to an issue of shares, even they do play the role of depository participant. Further, in order to provide services to investor, it becomes necessary on the part of DP to maintain a separate securities account for each and every investor. Lastly, there are many individuals and institutions who act as depository participant. Now, in order to identify each and every DP in the depository system, they are assigned a unique, that is a separate number through which they can be identified. Thus, you can see the importance, the role of depository participant in the entire functioning of the depository system. Let us now move towards the third constituent of depository system, that is the beneficial owner, which is also called in the short form as the BO. Firstly, beneficial owner is the investor who has purchased securities of company and thus has availed or taken the services of the depository participant. Further, BO can enjoy all the rights and benefits related to the securities held by the depository. Not only that, they also have to bear the liabilities in respect of such securities. Next, the BO is also called as the client of depository as well as the DP. Further, the investor, that is the BO, is required to open an account with DP, which is called as demat account, for the purpose of electronic handling of securities. However, the BO has to pay the necessary charges to DP for availing or taking the services of DP. Lastly, just like customers of bank have a separate account number, in a similar way, even BO is given a unique, that is a separate account number wherein the securities are held by the depository. So accordingly, the beneficial owner, the simple meaning of beneficial owner is nothing but a person who invests in the securities of the company. We have now reached towards the last constituent of depository system, that is the issuer company. Issuer company refers to the company which issues securities in dematerialized form, that is electronic form, which means that all the companies issuing securities in a computerized form are called as issuer company under the depository system. Further, it is compulsory for such an issuer company to register itself with the depository, that is, either with the NSDL or with the CDSL. The Companies Act 2013 makes it mandatory for each and every issuer company to get itself registered with the depository. Unless and until the registration is done with the depository, it is not possible to issue securities in electronic form, and so it is compulsory that all the companies issuing securities in electronic form have to register themselves with the depository. So dear students, with this we have completed all the four constituents of the depository system. That is, the first one being the depository, the second one being the depository participant, that is the DP, the third one being the beneficial owner, that is BO, which is nothing but a person who invests in the securities of the company. And lastly, the issuer company, that is a company issuing securities in demat form. Thank you, dear children, for your patience listening.